Unfortunately, Congress has not fulfilled its responsibility. It's failed to pass a budget, and as a result, much of our government must now shut down until Congress funds it again. Secretary Hagel, General Dempsey, and your commanders will have more information about how this affects you and your families. Today, I want to speak directly to you about what happens next. Those of you in uniform will remain on your normal duty status. The threats to our national security have not changed, and we need you to be ready for any contingency. Ongoing military operations, like our efforts in Afghanistan, will continue. If you're serving in harm's way, we're going to make sure you have what you need to succeed in your missions. Congress has passed, and I'm signing into law, legislation to make sure you get your paychecks on time. And we'll continue working to address any impact this shutdown has on you and your family.
Presidential address that you see on various websites. Of course, you've seen the president on every major news outlet, obviously, and speaking to the nation. That's specifically about the whole country as a whole and our national security and the people impacted by that. So on that note, it seems as if government is shut down, but only in select places. Obviously, we don't want national defense to suffer, but yet at the same time, it seems like it's select and it's impacting 17%. And as we talked about during the break, if you're a part of that 17%, it hits you hard. If not, it seems like the average person is just sort of carrying on with their lives. Bob, your take on that?
I think you're right in that analysis, John. You know, you indicated there's 1,000 people in Buffalo, Western New York, that have been affected with the federal government shutdown. You know, what agency do they work for, and what effect has it had on you or me or Steve or anybody else? I don't know. You know, I don't think anybody's really felt that. You saw last week, though, when some of the World War II veterans wanted to go to the World War II Memorial in Washington, D.C., they were stopped by security from going in there. So you are seeing it in some places where it is having an effect. The national parks, as you indicated at the outset today. Where's it going to go from here? I mean, there's got to be a compromise. As we were talking earlier, my definition of politics is the art of compromise. And right now, the two sides just aren't getting together. They're not even meeting. They're not planning a meeting. You've got an October 17th threat, which, as Steve said, it would be a catastrophe. They've got to get to the table. I mean, I know that the Republicans have got issues with Obamacare, and as a Republican, I have issues with Obamacare. I own a small business, and I'm concerned about what the impact of Obamacare is going to have on my business, not only to say to myself and to my family, but they've got to get together. And right now, there doesn't seem to be any movement. It's a stalemate. It's gridlock. But there's a big day coming up with respect to this debt ceiling.
And with economic impact and embarrassment.
As I said, it's important that this be resolved, and it will have to be resolved. But I think it's equally important for the future of this country and the strength of this country that the president not give in to a negotiation that is based upon a shutdown or not paying the country's bills and create an economic catastrophe. And I think he's ready to negotiate about all of these ideas, but not at the threat, not while the government's shut down. Now, the shutdowns are going to continue to affect people more and more every day. They'll be feeling it because whether it's the U.S. attorneys and the FBI who are furloughed and there's less of them working, right. Are we less safe? Probably.
Right. Army Corps of Engineers. Right. There are a lot of people I know that are
air traffic
impacted.
Control.
Yep. National Weather Service.
Half the intelligence agencies at home.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, this we don't know how it's going to affect us till it does. But the deeper thing I'm talking about is why are we at this impasse? Bob, I agree with him totally. When we used to work together, we would decide to fight on certain things, but there were times for Erie County we would come together and sit down and work something out that was positive for the government. Our representative democracy is based on compromise. Here's the problem that we have. We're living in a media democracy now.
So is it a media political stunt that they're looking to create?
When the founders came up with this system of government, I don't think they were thinking about 24/7 news cycles and a House of Representatives that was constantly running for office. I don't think they also thought about supercomputers that could gerrymander districts. Now out of 435 districts, you probably have 35 that are actually contested races. So what happens is Democrats don't have to fight Republicans in most of these districts. They worry about primaries. Bob knows, and I think what people should understand is most people that vote in primaries are the true ardent believers in their parties. So you have the the further right voting in Republican primaries and the further left voting in Democratic primaries. So people have to worry about not a race with a person from the other party, they have to worry about a primary within their party. Therefore, people that compromise to a person who's a true ardent believer of the Carls of the world, they'll see that compromise has a sellout.
Right.
So you do not get rewarded for compromising. You get primaried for compromising. So what you have is then you have people in both extremes of their parties playing not to the compromise, but playing to the issue.
So the political process
here's
gets in
what
the way of
happened.
the message.
Leaders need to take over from that point. Leaders need to be able to say, we still have to govern. And we may have to face the wrath of some of our voters. Because in this system that we have, it's not producing government. It's producing gridlock. So what needs to happen for this to happen is Obama, the last year, told the liberals, I'm giving in on some entitlements. They were very upset about it. I think to stop this crisis, the Speaker of the House needs to say, I'm putting a clean resolution on the floor to open the government. Let everybody vote as they may. And I think you'll see 200 Democrats and probably 25, 30 Republicans vote to get the government open. Then, to continue, I think he's got to work on his budget number. He's got to work on his deficit reduction. There's things they can achieve. But in order to win those things, they need to come to the table. And they can't do it by shutting down the government or causing an economic catastrophe with the debt ceiling.
You mentioned the Speaker of the House. It feels to me, Bob, that he's been neutered in some respect by the Tea Party. And where did Cruz come out of the woodwork?
That's exactly what's happened. You've got
but he's not doing anything.
You got 30 to 40 Republican members of Congress that were elected with the support of the Tea Party. And, you know, everybody knows what the Tea Party stands for. You know, less government, less taxes.
Right.
And so to Steve's point with regard to primaries, these Tea Party supported Republicans in Congress. If they move off their commitment at this point, they're probably going to face a primary from another Tea Party Republican in that specific congressional
district. Not only those 30 or 40, I think a lot of other members that see this craziness, the other 180, you know, you probably have 70 or 80 of them who are worried about a Tea Party primary.
No doubt about it.
So that if they break with this group of 40 and they break with Ted Cruz, they're worried that they'll receive a Tea Party primary. So those are the people that we're losing in this compromise that normally would be there. This is why I think, for the sake of the country, that the Speaker needs to rise above party and he needs to try to lead and bring the vote out to where it is. He's saying he doesn't believe the votes are there. Well, then if they're not, they're not. He should put it on the floor to open up the government. And then, you know, I think by the same token, the Democrats are going to have to agree to do some things in this deficit reduction package that they would not normally support, like a lower number that Boehner and McConnell were looking for. Pelosi and Reid have already agreed to do that. Well, they're going to lose some of their left in doing that. But I think the leaders of both parties, for the sake of this country, have to rise above their factions. And they have to both be given a little something. They both have to give a little something up. There's no such thing of a compromise that's a total surrender. And Boehner's saying, well, Obama's asking for surrender. It's not a compromise to keep the government open, and it's not a compromise to pay your bills. That should be a given. So I think Boehner at least has to get this government open and get by the credit. Then he's got to slow everything down, bring the Democrats to the table in terms of day-to-day governing. And I think what you'll see out of the Democratic leadership is a realization. You have 200 of them ready to vote. That wasn't true before, because there was 40 or 50 of those Democrats that feel like agreeing to this lower number of the overall budget is going to mean gutting too many programs that they believe in. So I think we're getting there, but he has to open this government up. It really, all eyes are on Boehner. He should be rising above the intricacies of his conference, govern for the country, and reopen this government. And I think if he does that, he'll find a partner in Obama, Reid, and Pelosi as far as understanding that they need to start doing deficit reduction and entitlement reform.
Let me get Bob to respond real quick, and then we're going to take a break. Do you think, based on what I'm hearing from Steve, it feels like it's all Boehner and his role in stopping the government? Do you see it the other way?
No, as I said earlier, the issue that Boehner has is he's got to get 217 votes from his Republican conference to get anything through Congress. And right now, I think, you hear it over and over, Boehner saying, I don't have the votes. It's because of that 30 to 40 Tea Party conservative Republican
Yeah.
bloc in Congress. Boehner's got to figure out how to lead and convince them so that he can get to the 217. And if he can't get to the 217, then he can't pass anything.
And
Unless he puts a clean resolution on the floor, and he does it with Democratic votes as well. Now, that may mean a risk of his speakership. I understand that.
Sure.
Because that breaks the Hastert rule of not putting anything on the floor. But that's a new rule, too. That never existed, where there has been times in the past where Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan would make the deal, and Tip would say, we're going to do it, but I'm going to lose 100 votes. I need you to get me 100 votes out of the Republican side. So that's what government
take a
should
quick
be.
break.
It shouldn't just be a majority of the ruling party. It should be a majority of the House. And maybe it's a combination that Boehner has to get back to the way they used to do things.
we'll be back with a few remaining minutes on Political Buzz right after this.